welcome. We are happy to have with us tonight Meg Sutton from over on the western part of the state. She is going to talk to us about moon gardens, gardening on the moon, something like that, moon gardens.
Yes, yes.
So go ahead, Meg. We're recording this, so we will be able to put it onto our playlist and people can watch this again. So go ahead and share your
Okay.
screen or whatever you're going to do.
Well, hi, I'm Meg Sutton. I'm a longtime Master Gardener volunteer from the University of Idaho Ada County Extension Office. Um, it's just such a cool group to have, just many different interests and knowledge bases. So I'm glad to be here to share my interest in this. I did this presentation for our Master Gardeners for like Halloween time because it was kind of we're doing like little spooky kind of garden stuff. So that's where the inspiration for this came from. And I have a few different books that I have in my reference list, but this quote was from one of those books as I was doing my research. I just thought that was such a neat little poem that kind of really felt fit well with doing moon gardens and working in the dark in the shadows a little bit more in the spooky times. So, has anybody heard of this concept or like wanted to do it before? Or is this just kind of like, it seems like I might as well be working on the moon, like Ron said.
I think we've had all of the above.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's good. I haven't done it yet, but I'm kind of starting to be intrigued by it. The concept of what is a moon garden. So when I was doing my research and looking through the books that were about it, it kind of came to seem like there were stories that people were telling, a common story of, you step outside for one reason or another, like you just step outside of your back door and you kind of notice a sphinx moth or a hawk moth and you wonder why it's there, and you kind of think, oh, it likes that one white flower or that flower that smells a little stronger, or someone walking their dog and walking through a field and then all the fireflies come up and they're it just kind of brings some wonder to that normal walk that you're taking. Of course, here we're not necessarily going to have the fireflies, which is unfortunate, but we can find some magic other than that. And I think the more common story is sharing the space, sitting outside after dark. You're having dinner with friends or drinks with the friends, and you're sitting outside and you start to notice that your plants look really special and bright in the moonlight, or you see some meteors overhead and you just think maybe I should spend some more time out here. So the purpose of a moon garden is a natural space designed on purpose to be enjoyed in the dark and to have plants that show reflect the moonlight, show silver and white, and potentially attract those night pollinators like the moths or other more interesting insects as well. So here in Idaho, especially, and where we are, it's hot in the summer. You're not going to spend a ton of time out during the day. So expanding the time that you can enjoy that space can really be beneficial. You put so much work into your garden, so much work into your patios and your, dining spaces and gathering spaces, and just extending the time that they are enjoyable and fun to hang out in can really be a benefit. You can kind of choose to see your garden in a different light or none at all by changing what you have in there and planning it for what might be interesting at night. And you can expand the benefits to other pollinators and wildlife. Of course, you might be surprised at the wildlife you do see. There's always the bats and other critters and stuff. So be aware that that'll be something that could be part of your garden more than you really realize. Or the owls as well. I have some owls here, and it'd be awesome to kind of see them in their own time. So creating a moon garden. I do have a plant list in the handout, just kind of as suggestions to start from. So, if you just want a place to start, there's some good ideas in there. General kind of things to think about is choosing a spot that's open to the sky, where you can see the sky, you can see the stars, uninterrupted by trees and buildings. Of course, that's harder in the city and, surrounded by the neighborhoods. And of course, the lights from the neighbors, like both of my neighbors have very bright lights that they have on all the time. And one in particular, I think that, every once in a while I could say, hey, maybe we could turn that light off and we could enjoy like the meteor shower this week or something like that. So that might be something to think about with, everybody just has their security lights and just washes out everything that you might see otherwise. So it's kind of frustrating that way. When you're thinking about your plants, it's the same kind of principles as gardening in general. You get your variety of heights, flower types, and shapes and textures, and blooming times as well. So throughout the summer or whenever time you're spending outside, there's different things to look at. There's a few different night blooming plants that do well here, like the night blooming tobacco has a white flower that is really strongly scented and will grow here as an annual. So that's something to kind of look into, what blooms might work, what plants have different foliage that will work for that and for the strong scents. Their moon garden can be incorporated into what you already have, or you can kind of set aside a space brand new for that kind of thing, or make a room. I think with garden design, they talk about the rooms for, here's for sitting, here's for, I don't know what other rooms you might have. It's kind of relaxing or meditating or whatever. But I think a lot of us probably don't have that much space we can dedicate a room to a whole moon garden. So just little here's and there's, and incorporate it to what we already have. And of course, they can be on a balcony or porch or deck, just kind of gathered into containers, or indoors as well. There's a lot of houseplants and tropical plants and other things that here in Idaho wouldn't necessarily grow very well with our moisture levels, especially. So houseplants can definitely be a good option for that. Just kind of creating a corner that would be good to have night blooming flowers. One of my good friends from the Master Gardener program had one of the night blooming cereus plants, and she kind of knew when about it was going to bloom. And so we planned on having a party when those flowers are going to bloom. And she had us all over for dinner. And sure enough, halfway through that evening, in her living room, that plant started to bloom, and we just went and watched it and observed it, and it smelled so interesting. And that was just the coolest thing to do, was a garden, horticulture kind of party. So those kind of things, you could just learn about the plants and the times that they're going to be blooming and growing. Do see some chats. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or ideas for this kind of stuff.
I will let you know if there's any questions for sure.
Thank you. Should have said that ahead of time, probably to plan on how to do that. Your design elements to consider. There's definitely some really important things to consider when you're planning this kind of thing. Safety first, obviously. You're going to want some clearly marked pathways, edges, areas. So if you're walking around looking at your cool plants, you're not going to trip, you're not going to fall. And you can have some subtle lighting. Of course, you don't want to drown out your plants, drown out the view, all that kind of stuff. So subtle and downward pointing lights are probably a good idea, or some soft fairy lights just here and there to mark off where the planting areas are. It's always a good idea. Depending on what you want to do in that area, we're going to do seating and other surfaces, depending on what activities you want to do, and just having those set ahead of time so they're nice and well marked out. Your containers and other decor that would be visible at night. This is an interesting thought, because you think about what color your containers are, but how are they going to reflect at night? Like if they could be metallic or have some white detail on them, what will they look like at night? So I think that's a really cool thing that I'm going to think about and add some to my garden and kind of think about that factor. Really, other good option for adding a new dimension to a garden in any sense is water as a sound feature. So when you can't see anything, you can hear, hey, that fountain's over there, and just the very relaxing sound of that, having that in the background. And of course, water features will be good for wildlife in general anyway. And if you want to gather around the fire pit or the outdoor oven to make some food, it's a good thing to incorporate into this kind of space. So yeah, just kind of little details and decor here and there, always good to add. So like I said, there's the plant list. We kind of focus them into the different categories. So night flowering is a really good way to start. Just what will very specifically open up and have those flowers out when it's dark to add to the ambiance. Scented, get the strong scents at night, of course, to engage your senses when you're out and there's no light and you can't see the plants, and they might start smelling really nice and, jasmine or, whatever nice smell. And that will be the thing that attracts pollinators as well. The white or pale flowers, uh, listing out, pale pink and blue and yellow are good options as well as white. And that kind of breaks open the possibilities a little bit, and just seeing what those look like in the dark. Things like red and orange might not really show, but maybe those plants have foliage that's silvery or white or has details in them that will pop underneath the moonlight a little bit. So kind of thinking about your design, principles of grouping things and having drifts of color, and just seeing what you can accomplish with that limited light and just different senses. And grasses are a good option too. There's some that have kind of a silvery look to them or just really light colored, and those can add some texture in the backgrounds of everything else. Lots of ideas for actually enjoying your garden at night. And, I think there's some hesitation maybe nowadays just to be outside at night. I always kind of that thing of like, when we were kids, we played outside and it was dark and we just, ran around and weren't worried about it. But I think now as I'm older, I just kind of don't really think about, I'm going to go and enjoy my garden at night and, spend some time out there. Of course, there's, mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff. So also prepare for that, make sure you're mindful of those kind of eventualities of getting lots of mosquito bites. Relaxing, we have long days at work and we just want to make a spot that's relaxing that will help us feel better and make the garden have that purpose for us. So I think that's why a lot of us garden anyway. A night blooming watch party, like I mentioned, you gather your handful of friends and observe those blooms that only last one night and then they're done. There's a handful of plants that do that. And the night blooming cereus is an example. My friend's plant was very large, so it had very large flowers and was a really neat thing to see. But I'm not sure how long it takes to get to that point. She'd had it for a very long time. Meteor showers, like I've mentioned as well, is a good option. Even in the city, there's strong showers that you can catch a glimpse of those meteors. There's always the really big one in August. Here in town, I could see a fair few just out my back window. There was one in December that I knew about, and I thought maybe I should just look out my window. And sure enough, my back window, I was seeing meteors out there in the middle of the city, and I could see them just racing right by. So, don't discount the fact that maybe you have a little bit more light pollution than you'd like, but maybe a lot of you are in rural areas. I don't know. Really looking at those meteor shower calendars and planning some times, look at where the moon's going to be as well. That's kind of the, double-edged sword of this is you want the moon to not be as full during that time or rising at a different time. So it's always, you can never quite plan it. One year we did plan a meteor viewing party and I did not look at what the moon was going to be. And it was just full moon right in the middle of the sky. And we just kind of sat in our chairs and thought, that wasn't the best plan. Camping out is always a good idea too. Camp out in the backyard. We did that as kids. It's easier than getting all your stuff together and going hours away. If you have the space and the ability, camp out right in your backyard, make some s'mores and enjoy those night blooming plants, and maybe have the kids, notice those pollinators, see those sphinx moths and just how cool those are. I've seen a few of them during the day and I can't imagine having them come in the night and actually seeing them. So I'm planning to plant some of the tobacco this year to encourage those. And like I gave my presentation on this the first time around Halloween, you can make it spooky, get some decor that's spooky, they're going to pop at night, have little, red lights and different things. I made a note on the handout, avoid using the fake cobwebs if you can, just because they can trap birds, they can trap the beneficial insects and such, and they're just not as, environmentally friendly as we might like. So other options for decorating for Halloween, but spending some time outside if it's not super cold by that time. This year it was really nice on Halloween here, so that was definitely an option. I think my next one is just my books and articles. I read those 3 books on there for this, and they're all really good. The first one, The Guide to Creating an Evening Oasis, was just a really basic, straight up, just, all these different ideas and how to implement them. And that one was a really good one. Night Magic has the story. She goes into the storytelling, and there's seasonal sections to it. So kind of just how to incorporate it in spring, summer, and autumn. I don't think she had winter in there, which kind of surprised me, but I guess that makes sense if you just don't want to be out very long when it's cold. But there's definitely things with frost and other things that could be really engaging and nice in the winter, I would think. And How to Be a Moonflower is a really neat kind of field guide to being open to spending more time outside at night and how to just kind of explore that side of things. She also has one, I can't remember what it's called, but it's kind of a similar field guide of just how to be a wildflower. I think that's what it's called. So just making a point to be outside and, paying attention and observing everything. Some good articles there with how to design and the different house plants and things for moon gardens. And I found the most information for plant profiles on the different extension websites, and calscape.org especially had some really good plant profiles to find out what'll grow in your area, what'll do well. A lot of these things might end up being annuals and necessarily wouldn't, winter over very well. And so you'll have to kind of plan for each year separately, but you can find what works and then work on it. Of course, all of our gardens are works in progress anyway. So yeah, that's kind of the overview on how to do that. And, I haven't done it yet, so I don't have practical experience on it, but it's definitely in my mind to do this next year to kind of incorporate some of this stuff. So any comments or questions that I might be able to answer, or just thoughts on it?
Okay, anybody out there try doing moon gardens? Successes, failures, things that you've been doing? Me, by the time it gets dark, I'm done. I want to.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
I spend all day out in the garden, and when I get at nighttime, I need to go relax and go to bed.
Yeah, your relaxing is indoors, and that's true. But not all of us are as lucky to work in this kind of field where you are gardening outside all the time. You're in
I
your
think it
office.
is one of the times when the beneficials will come out. So you're right, like it's not just the moths, but a lot of those insects that we rely on to keep the other insect populations down, they're more active at night.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Bats, like I said, if you have your insects, you've got your bats that coming around and that kind of stuff. So
I've
I was
spent
gonna
a
say
lot
one
of
of our
nights with a I always put a black light in the window of my truck and then put a white sheet over the top, and man, it there's a lot of cool insects that come out at night. So that's one way
wow.
maybe to make your moon garden really pop is get a black light and a sheet, and you'd be able to see all kinds of things.
Especially
Yes.
those mosquitoes, right?
The light, the buzz trap was a different thing. But I think adding the suggestion for having a black light as part of your setup would be a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that. That's an
Yeah,
awesome
they're
idea.
pretty inexpensive to tell you the truth.
Hmm.
They're just not that much money. And you can go anywhere because a lot of black lights will plug into the cigarette lighter on your car too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That would be very
Hey, we
interesting
love
review.
sitting on the porch and watching all the bats come out at night because we have a ton in our yard. So
Awesome.
that's kind of a fun moment in time. We did have a question about glow in the dark plants a little bit
Hmm.
earlier.
Oh, yes, we had that question in the Master Gardener class as well. Is that yes, there are some that have the genetic modifications to have the uh, that gene put in that'll make them glow in the dark. I think there's a petunia that's like glow in the dark or night stars or something like that. And yeah, definitely that is a good idea. If you can get your hands on some of those, definitely put those in and see what they'll do. I think the comment we had in class was like eventually if you keep it from a long time, they might kind of like I don't know, like mutate back or, not be as intense after a while. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth an experiment and see if you can get your hand on those. Those are pretty cool.
They're very expensive.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, have a budget. Maybe that's another thing. Have a
Yeah.
budget.
So that firefly petunia is a genetically modified organism. They took some bioluminescence genes from fungus, combined that with the petunia, and came up with it. But I'm wondering if there's any of them. I was just trying to see if I could find any that were not genetically modified for that particular characteristic.
Yeah, I just don't
Probably
think that
some
really,
moss in a cave somewhere.
yeah, right. This doesn't really naturally occur, but maybe.
There's the algae that they get in Australia that will bioluminesce when it
Mhm.
blooms, and people like swirl the water and you can see it glowing. So I feel
So,
like
okay.
plants are capable.
Yeah, yeah. You got to get some of that and put it in your like pond or something. No, 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 no. Don't bring that stuff. No, no. That's a bad idea.
So we did have someone mention that they did a moon garden in a different state with lots of drought tolerant plants because they have silvery leaves.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then someone said that they love the Nicotiana at night. Never had much luck with Ipomea moonflowers. Very few blooms with short duration. So,
Hmm.
I was just say I just bought moonflower and I'm trying that for the first time, but I have grown the other Ipomeas on a trellis, and I find that you need to seed them like every half inch and then have something for them to grow on and then be very patient. And then about the time you're ready to give up on them, it'll be covered in blooms.
All of a sudden be like, and I mean, I always think about that too. It's like, well, I have plenty of bindweed that flowers white, so that's a good one for the background.
And then maybe for our agents, somebody asked about Nicotiana interfering with tomatoes. I've never heard of that.
I mean, they're nightshades as well. It's in the nightshade family, so
Yeah, so rotate, but
hmm, hmm. Don't know if there's any diseases or anything that might interfere or yeah.
I don't
and then
know of
somebody else,
any diseases or anything that would interfere, but I think it's just like what Meg said there is that rotate any time that you're having just solanaceous type crops because it would be the same pests and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't
yeah,
know of
I
yeah.
anything
guess
specific
Diseases
that
and
anybody's
my
ever really said.
one supposition is that I have heard that the Nicotiana plant is a little bit more hardy to some of the diseases and stuff than maybe your tomatoes are. So maybe that's the concern that maybe you're bringing something in it can withstand and your tomatoes can't. I don't know. But
yeah, if something comes with it.
and then somebody asked about the Nicotiana too, if it was an annual or not. And here it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like a zone 9 or 10 or something. So
Yeah.
what do you guys know about Datura?
Mm.
It's an interesting plant. I had a neighbor when I was down in Price, Utah, had a datura, the great big white blossom. The Jimson weed is another name for it, but big beautiful white blossom was quite attractive there in the evening, nighttime. I wasn't over in the neighbor's yard at nighttime, but I did happen to
Right.
see that. It's really pretty cool. It's very poisonous, but
Yeah, that's what
I
I
was
was
gonna say they said
gonna
that too. I don't know. I feel like a lot of my favorite showy flowers are really poisonous. Just
say.
don't
just
eat
just
Chicken
don't
it.
pieces. Yep.
just don't eat it.
Teach
Of
your
course,
children and
the
your grandchildren well.
And
yeah,
your
and of course
dog.
the same thing goes with the other plants that we were talking about. A lot of these night plants are going to be a little bit toxic, like Nicotiana. That's also a little bit toxic. All the
Yeah,
solanaceous
yeah,
ones
you
are.
Hmm.
can't eat that. And then they asked about loco weed. I don't know that one.
Yeah, I don't
Local weed
know.
is if they're talking about the one that makes horses go kind of crazy. Horses will start eating it, and then they get a taste for it, and it'll kill horses. But
Oh, right. Yes, I have heard of that.
yeah,
Oh, kind
Yeah.
of silvery foliage with purple flowers.
Hmm.
And
there's
I
a
see
blue
some
one.
with white
There's a blue one
flowers.
and a white one.
Yeah, that would show up well in a moon garden. Don't plant
Yeah,
it by horses, I guess.
yeah.
Say I had a booklet from the University of Idaho that was plants poisonous to livestock, but I don't think I have it right here. But yes, I think yeah, that would be a cool one because I remember it's like fuzzy and kind of white and silvery. So yeah, they just have to be aware of what it's dangerous for and keep that under consideration for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, don't plant local weed. Yeah.
You know, yeah,
I
be
mean,
aware. Right plant, right place.
I'm pretty sure it's native down in Utah. I'm sure it's native in
Mhm.
areas of Idaho as well.
Yes, yes. Starting to
Oh, somebody asked about
happen.
hound's tongue. Is that what we're thinking of? Hound's tongue is different because I know what
That's
that
different.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah,
find some pictures of each and post those in the chat.
and hound's tongue it's also toxic to livestock.
Yeah, that we're just going down the list of this that I remember from the poisonous plant
Yeah.
publications. Like, oh,
And the hound's tongue it's on the noxious weed list anyway. So if you see that one, you need to get rid of it. But
that's what I have right here. I wonder if
besides being
local-
noxious, it's very, very obnoxious because the seeds catch on your clothing and
Oh yeah, there it is right there. Hound's tongue.
local weed.
Yeah. Be aware of where your plants are from and whether they're noxious for sure.
So
They asked
wisteria,
about lamium and wisteria.
Mhm. Lamium's a good
wisteria
one if
might be
that's silver.
interesting. I'm not sure how much reflection you get off the wisteria flower, but
Oh, but it smells so good at night.
well, yeah,
There you go. Mhm.
It will not be hardy
yeah,
in Idaho Falls and north. Those of
right,
you in Pocatello or maybe Blackfoot could plant like the hardier Chinese varieties, but
yeah.
yeah. And then what was the other one? Oh, sorry, the pictures are. Oh, lamium. Yeah. That could be quite showy in a moon garden.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
if
idea.
I'm remembering right, that's one that smells stronger at night as well, but that's the one that kind of smells like cat pee. So, choose your battles.
An acquired smell, maybe. I don't know.
Is hound's tongue beggar's lice? I've never heard of that
I've never
before.
heard that phrase.
It sure sounds like it could be because they look like ginormous ticks when they're stuck to you. And then Evelyn mentioned evening primrose, which are also lovely.
Yes. Put that on the list. Yeah. Yeah, native plants over all else. Like, keep those in mind for sure. Don't share. There we go.
Yeah, we do have some really lovely evening primrose at our office, but I feel like they bloom all the time. They don't seem to be selective.
Yeah, beggar's lice, depending on what picture you're looking at. The problem with the common names is that there's a lot of times you get a name and it can refer to more than one plant.
Gonna say when someone like me moves from somewhere else to a new region and we
Yeah.
all think we're talking about the same plant and we're not.
Yeah, like down in down by Price, ironweed, the local people they would call kochia ironweed, and ironweed's a total different plant to me. So
Oh, yeah, I haven't heard that for kochia.
Look at my list of plants. I really like the addition of like culinary sage on this list because I have a lot of that in my yard. So I'm like interested to see what that looks like in the at nighttime specifically because I haven't looked.
Yeah. A lavender catches the moonlight really well too. It's so very nice. And I have an agastache, which that's a native plant, right, Ron? To like Arizona and stuff.
I don't know.
Anyway, it kind of has a similar leaf look to lavender, but it's a much bigger plant and the leaves are a little bit more spread out. But it looks very pretty in the moonlight too and has a very strong licorice smell. So that's one of my favorites because I love licorice.
That's a divisive taste / smell for sure.
Okay, well, we got this is just trying to get our season going and visiting with people that have gardening in their blood and they can't quite, you've been out of the garden now for, of course, it's been warm enough this winter that we probably could have been out gardening. It's been one of those years. Be interesting to see how the plants respond to this warm winter.
Yeah, I've been like checking my fruit trees and seeing if they're budding early. It doesn't seem like they are too early, but I'm just worried about
Uh,
that.
I was
I've
checking
had,
mine and they weren't budding too early, but I am concerned about, maybe winter damage because we have had a few cold nights, especially
Hmm.
on peaches and stuff.
Yeah, my apricot tree.
if
Apricots,
there's
yeah.
still, I mean, yeah, the apricots, I could see them coming out because they don't take much for them to reach their chilling requirements. And that's the other challenge is we got this chilling requirement could be met a little quite early this year because it's not been a really cold winter. When it's really cold, they don't get they don't meet that chilling requirement. It's got to be warm, cool temperatures, and so we'll see. My looked at my fruit trees and they don't look like their buds are swelling yet at all. So
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I haven't even gathered my signwood for my apple grafting class, and I need to gather that before the buds break. So I was looking at that today, and
uh,
they don't look too bad, but if it warms up one more time, I'm gonna have to grab that signwood right now.
my little apple tree has already budded and has some leaves sticking out. So
Oh dear.
stratify leek seeds. I've never done that before. What do you think, Ron?
doing what?
If they need to stratify leek seeds.
I don't know. I'd have to research that. I
I
don't know.
never have before, and they still come up every year.
Yeah, I
So
don't think so. I mean, you could try. When we had Bracken talking to us in the Master Gardeners, he talked about if you have some seeds that just aren't seeming to germinate very well, maybe the viability is decreased on them, like a lot of allium families do. You could try a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution on them, but you'd have to look up the recipe for that anyway.
looks like leeks do not usually require stratification. Everything I'm finding, University of Minnesota is the one I was just looking at, says they do not
Yeah,
require that.
yeah, I wouldn't think so. So yeah.
Thanks for reminding me that I have seeds in the refrigerator, though.
Ah, you've been stratifying some.
Yeah, I better go get those out and plant. They're all flowers, though.
Time to check your refrigerator drawers for what's hidden in there.
Well, I always tuck those in the very back so that they won't get bothered, and then I forget.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
this?
that's the problem with stratifying in your home refrigerator. Yeah,
You don't have one set aside especially for it.
it's like the carrots I picked last fall, and they're still back in the back of the crisper drawer.
Oh no. They
Mm.
need like the dishwasher magnet for the dishwasher is dirty or clean, and a few for carrots in the
There you,
back, seeds stratifying.
there you go. Okay.
I don't know if they or Sierra or Anne passes along when we were talking about doing this, but my job now is with seeds, as germinating testing seeds.
Oh, cool.
So I'm new to it, 6 months ish, but it's it's interesting to learn about the viability and germination rates and strategies.
My latest experiment was doing a germination test on cranberry seeds after they'd been
Oh,
through the freeze dryer.
oh yeah,
And I
that's not
got
a
maybe
good.
like a 2% germination rate, but they all died fairly quickly within a few days of sprouting. So I'm not sure that any of them were truly viable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like you
Well,
got
and
to think
that's
about like they're
true
holding their
because
food with them, what they're going to use. So,
yeah, and that's true when you go to germination, not just because that radical pops out doesn't mean it's going to be a viable plant. So you got to be when you're doing those germination tests, make sure you don't count. You're really counting things that are viable. That's what I did wrong when I first started doing germination tests. If it popped the shell, I counted it. And that's not absolutely true all the time.
Yeah,
oh,
but
well, I
technically
didn't
that
know
is
that.
germination. That's what germination is technically, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
you can have them germinate, but still not have them grow.
So you're saying we
You
need
don't,
a
right. That's what I'm
viability
talking.
test as
yeah,
well.
Yeah, right. That's kind of what I'm saying is that not everything that squirms is totally working.
right.
Hey, I was just pleased that I got something out of them after they'd been through the freeze drying process.
Interesting. Yeah, that's just more of
So
an experiment than anything.
we ought to promote the horticulture symposium, Lena.
Yep, that's what I was working on. I just put the flyer in the chat. There's a QR code on there for registration. I can also pull up a link probably for that too. Well, nope, I can't because I'm locked out of Payport. Morgan, if that QR code doesn't work for you, email me and I'll send you a direct link when I get my account working. Safe to spray weeds in a high tunnel run.
Uh, the answer is it depends. Some of your, I don't. I don't like to spray herbicides pretty much anywhere around my plants anyway, but some of them are volatile when it gets a little bit hot, and you run that risk of the temperature rising when that's in there. I'd be very very careful. It depends partly on which is it gets pretty hot. I really wouldn't want to, if it's going to stay down in colder temperatures, cooler temperatures, that's fine. But most of the weeds that you're going to have, if you go out there, if you got a high tunnel, go out and pull the weeds.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a small area.
Yeah.
Pull the weeds instead of using a chemical.
I have yet to see a plant that has developed resistance to being pulled. Now you'll get some of them will come back from the roots, but if you keep doing that pulling, eventually you'll win the war. So
it's pretty effective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like things like goat heads put up a pretty good fight, and sometimes I give up before I get it all out.
My contention is by the time you've went out and bought the herbicide, read the label, mixed it, got it put in the sprayer, calibrated it, you could have easily pulled all those weeds.
You could have done a lot of weeding, yeah.
Or if it's
you're not saving very much time.
As I say, or if it's a big issue in the high tunnel, close the doors and let the sun take care of it.
Well, I'll tell you a story. When we first did a greenhouse when I was a little kid, I told my mom I was going to set her up a little irrigation system in there. So there was this old spray rig on the rock pile. It had been sitting there for 10 years, and I said, "Hey, can I salvage that?" And my grandpa says, "Yeah, go ahead." So I salvaged that thing, and there was enough chemical just in the plastic that it destroyed my mom's greenhouse. And that was after it had sat on a rock pile for like 10 years.
Oh dear.
So yeah, chemicals in greenhouses, they're effective at killing plants because that's a pretty closed system. There's not going to be very many plants that escape it. So
I did have a question about growing petunias the other day.
Starting
getting
the
a little
seeds?
bit late for that. Yeah, starting from seed.
Oh,
They're tiny.
Yeah, they are not my favorite adventure.
Depending on the price of gold, petunia seeds are more valuable than gold, ounce for ounce.
And depending on the price, I'd rather just go buy a couple 4-packs for $2 each when they go on sale than fight with those little tiny things for 4 to 6 months before I put down.
Yeah, I very seldom start flowering plants indoors. Yeah.
Oh, well, I won't do an unboxing video of what I just opened for you then. It was 75% flowers. Granted, a lot of them I straight, so
I probably should, marigolds and zinnias and things like that.
oh, zinnias are very easy. And then you have zinnias.
forever.
Yep. If you want them forever, you can just back their heads at the end of the year and have more next year.
The cosmos are really easy.
Yeah.
They reseed themselves quite well.
Yeah, poppies too. I pick my
Oh,
few
yeah.
favorite poppies and smash their little heads around where I want them to come back. And
That's so satisfying. That's one of my favorite things to do.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I
I
went
kind
and
of don't
walked in
like
my
those
area.
When
those
my daughter
California
was
poppies.
younger, I had to fight her for him because she was trying to get her pepper shakers for her playhouse out of the garden,
Awesome. I walked around my area that I have been putting those poppy seeds very, religiously for a few years. I'm trying to get it just to be a field. And this year I already walked back there and it's been so warm. I'm like, plant. I'm like, that's a poppy. That's a poppy. And I'm like looking at the leaves. I'm like, this is working. Yeah. I was like, okay, it's not weeds. It looks a little concerning because it's like where the cheatgrass and stuff really is competing, but I think I'll get it.
I was excited the year that I had been in my house long enough and maintained the weeds long enough that I could tell my poppies because there wasn't so much of the big annual tumble mustard coming up in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, you really have to learn those little leaves.
Yep.
I don't like poppies, the annual poppies, because they just won't stay contained.
Well, you have like the California poppies, Ron. We're not talking about those. We're talking about like the big, beautiful.
I have the big oriental poppy, the big orange one blossom that blooms.
Yeah.
So the problem with that one is it blooms, it comes up and it looks really nice in the spring for about 3 hours and then the wind blows and eats them to pieces. But they're really quite pretty for a day.
Well, go outside and cut them and put them in a vase before the wind starts.
But I do have I got those little California poppies and I got some other annual poppies and some of them
And
have a
those are
double
the
blossom and
Oh, it's not going to show you because I'm a background thing. There's the annual poppies that I just got.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not like your California or Iceland that take over. In fact, I have to work to get them to reseed themselves. And I have some of the doubles that are kind of really frilly. They look like the cactus zinnias. And those ones, their petals don't blow away in the wind, Ron, if you want to try some.
I've got some of those red poppies that they're taller than the California poppies, and they're nice. Some of them have a single flower, some have a double flower, and so I've been kind of selecting for the double flowers, trying to get more of the double flowers and pulling up all the single flower plants and letting them go. But they still don't stay. They end up in different parts of my yard that I don't want them.
Well, they're not that hard to pull out.
No, they're not. They're not. I have trouble with all these other weeds and
put pre-emergent in the places you don't want them. I don't know.
the problem is the flowers are taking too much of my time. I can't eat them, and so I
don't recommend it.
Well, yeah, I think you can eat some of them though, Ron, right?
Time doing.
What's that, Reed?
I think some of them you can eat, right, Ron?
Well, some, but we were just talking about all these plants that are poisonous.
Well, almost any of the annual poppies, you can use their seeds for baking. So,
and guess what, everybody? That one plant that I hate so bad, it is edible.
Are you talking about roses or Russian olive?
No, the little fleshy leaf one.
Oh,
personally.
Yeah, actually, cultivate that for dinner.
Yeah, actually, that I've tried that in salads. That's actually not too bad.
Yeah, well, if it wouldn't spread, that'd be fine.
Somebody mentioned nasturtium. I really like nasturtium on my salad. I really like that like tiny hint of horseradish kick to it. And then we had a question about, is it too muddy for a soil test right now?
If it's muddy, then it's too muddy, yeah.
You have to send it. You have to mail it. So it's like
yeah, you want to collect your soil when it's good moisture, but even after that, you really should dry it out, let it air dry. You don't need to bake it, but let it air dry out. So you could collect it now, but it's going to be pretty crusty and slick and clumpy. And so when they send that to the lab, they have to break it apart. They don't like that. So I would wait until it's more friable before you actually do your samples. Better to do it in the fall and in the spring rather than the middle of the winter.
And then a question, are there any edible nightshade plants? And I think they're talking about the vines, not the fruit. Since we eat a lot of the
plant
fruit.
material.
Um,
Don't eat berries.
well, technically, the potato tuber is a stem, not a fruit. So yes.
And then Misha says anything is edible once. I'm not sure I agree. I don't think you get curare to your mouth before it got you.
I do have some plants that I've started downstairs, but that was mostly for that seed starting lab that we did a couple weeks ago. I had the plants, so I just kept them going. So now I've got little nasturtiums. They're not big enough yet to harvest, but I can start putting nasturtiums in, or not nasturtiums. I can remember these plants have been really good. Right?
Arugula?
Arugula.
Okay.
The nice thing about the arugula, it germinates very quick. I put it in, and by the next day, it's starting to germinate. So you can use them for if you got to have some plants up real quick for some example. But
Well, I learned about those African daisies too, man. Some of those were popping up the next day, and they were almost all up 2 days later, and I would have never guessed that in a million years.
Yeah, but they dried out pretty bad in the biotranet.
We had someone take another packet home, so hopefully we'll still have a good tray of them. And I took the half tray and the half rosemary to my house, but I don't have room for everything.
I have some grow shelves for different things, and actually the light that I have in my room right here isn't an overhead light, it's from my grow shelves. It's a very nice ambient light.
Well, you look great.
Oh,
Do you
oh,
feel
it
like
is a
you're
really
getting
good
your
light.
vitamin D?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like, oh, I got all my plants. I have some of the seeds that have been germinating. And so it's like I have a bean plant over there that they pollinate themselves. So I have a little tiny bean pod on my plant. So I might actually get some beans. They're calypso beans, which is very cool.
Oh,
And
fun.
yeah, I've got some cosmos and marigold, I think. I have some asparagus. I don't really know how that's going to go, but we have asparagus seeds, so I'm gonna try it.
Yeah,
Cool.
asparagus blooming are coming up all over my place. The seeds of, I'm not sure what's carrying the seeds to these places where I've never had asparagus before. They pop up. Okay.
Yeah, and I've heard of like you have the male and female plants, and you don't want the male ones, or you do want the male ones. I
You
can't remember.
want
You
the
only
male,
want
you don't
one,
want
so
the
it's not.
females.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Females attract some of those insects that cause a little bit of problems. Your asparagus beetle and things like that. But
I
yeah,
have a few of the female plants, but I cut them out continuously to use in arrangements because they're darling with their little seed pods on as a filler, and then they're not attracting anything when you're cutting them out for bouquets.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, what a unique thing to have. I've never seen that.
nature will find a way. I bought a bunch of asparagus plants, and they're supposed to be almost all male, but now they're about 50% female.
Oh, wow. See, and I
Nature
only
will,
had like
Nature's
2
like,
female out of 20 come up, and that was like the perfect ratio for me. I'm like, I can use those. I don't want any more than that.
nature finds a way, just like they say in Jurassic Park.
And
But
the dog comes.
asparagus is one of those few vegetables that really is designed for our area. It likes a higher pH. It deals with, we don't have a lot of saline salt, but a little bit, and so it does very well in a high pH type soil. Sandy is even better, but very good plant. I love asparagus.
Me too. If it came up weedy all over my yard, I would not complain.
Okay, well, I don't know. We're just chatting. We're just flapping our gums, so and that's okay.
I mean, there's been a few questions along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Haven't really had any other questions. We got that snow that came in last week, and so people stopped asking if they could plant and stuff. So
Just because you have a warm winter doesn't mean it's going to be early spring. I mean, you're going to get these late frosts just as bad. So
Ron, Evelyn had a really good question. Can you eat seedling asparagus?
Well, Yes. Usually seedling asparagus, with asparagus, you want the plant to become established before you start harvesting off of it. But if you've got a weed there, if it's tender, but usually those seedlings are kind of tough. And so, I mean, if you get them early enough, but they turn tough pretty quick until they get established, and then they start sending up those fleshy spears. So, yeah, you could.
If you're harvesting on the canal, take whatever you want.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, once it gets established, you get those big, thick asparagus spears, and they're really good.
Have you ever tried asparagus that doesn't have any chlorophyll in it? I remember one time they had me test that out, and you cover your asparagus and let it grow underneath there, and that's supposed to be really great, but that also really debilitates the plant.
Yeah,
but it is one of those side dishes that's supposed to be spectacular.
It didn't taste a whole lot different to me.
That's what I thought.
Was it white then? Since it
Yeah, it was kind of
Yeah, you
white.
like mound it up,
Kind
the
of
soil up as it grows, so it's always growing under the soil except the very tip, and so it just stays white.
so it's kind of bleached, kind of like they do that with leeks sometimes too.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
fun experiment, but
So
Hey, well, thanks, Megan, for your presentation. That was
Yeah.
very
Thanks for having me.
interesting.